The drama surrounding David Benavidez versus Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez didn't just feel like another big fight. It felt like a moment suspended in time, where legacy, pride, and history all stood shoulder to shoulder inside the ring, waiting to see who would rise and who would fall. The arena buzzed with anticipation long before the first punch was thrown. There was a different kind of electricity in the air that night, something heavier than hype, something deeper than just two fighters competing for belts. This was about identity, about Mexican boxing greatness being tested at a level rarely seen before. And as the lights dimmed and the introductions began, the weight of the moment settled in. The challenger stepped forward first. David Benavidez, already a feared name in boxing circles, entered the ring draped in confidence and expectation. Wearing the colors of the Mexican flag, he carried more than just his undefeated record into the spotlight. He carried the hopes of becoming something greater, something historic. At 31 wins, no losses, and 25 knockouts, his reputation wasn't just built on victories, it was built on destruction. Opponents didn't just lose to Benavidez. They broke under the pressure of his relentless offense, his suffocating combinations, his refusal to take a backward step. But this wasn't just another fight for him. This was a chance to become a 3-division world champion. From 168 to 175, and now stepping into the 200-pound division, Benavidez wasn't just chasing belts. He was chasing immortality. And then came the champion. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez stood across the ring, calm, composed, and carrying the aura of a man who had already proven himself time and time again. With 48 wins and only a single defeat, Ramirez wasn't just experienced, he was battle-tested. A former champion in multiple divisions, and notably the first Mexican fighter to claim titles at both super middleweight and cruiserweight, he represented a different kind of threat. Not explosive like Benavidez, but calculated. Not reckless, but patient. This wasn't just a clash of styles. This was a clash of eras, of philosophies, of two men who both believed the ring belonged to them. As the referee gave his final instructions, there was a brief moment where both fighters locked eyes. No words were exchanged, but everything was understood. Respect, tension, and a quiet promise of violence hung between them. And then, the bell rang. The opening round began cautiously, but it didn't stay that way for long. Benavidez wasted no time establishing his presence, stepping forward with that signature pressure that had overwhelmed so many before. His hands were fast, faster than expected at this weight, and he wasted little movement, throwing sharp, precise combinations designed to test Ramirez early. Ramirez, fighting out of the southpaw stance, responded with discipline. He kept his guard tight, worked the body when opportunities appeared, and tried to slow the tempo. But even in those early moments, something was clear. Benavidez wasn't here to pace himself. He was here to break something. By the second round, the rhythm began to shift. The exchanges grew sharper, more dangerous. Benavidez's left hook started finding its mark, snapping Ramirez's head back just enough to draw a reaction from the crowd. Ramirez answered with body shots, digging in with intent, trying to take something out of the younger man's gas tank. But Benavidez didn't slow down. If anything, he accelerated. Each combination came in waves. 3 punches, then 5, then 7. His hand speed wasn't just impressive, it was overwhelming. Even when Ramirez blocked, the impact was felt. Even when he defended, the pressure remained. By the third round, the fight had fully ignited. Both fighters were landing now, trading shots in the center of the ring. Ramirez showed his toughness, absorbing clean punches and firing back with counters that demanded respect. For a moment, it looked like he might be able to weather the storm, to drag Benavidez into deeper waters where experience could take over. But Benavidez wasn't drowning. He was thriving. Every exchange seemed to fuel him. His punches came with more force, more urgency, more intention. And then, in a flash, it happened. A perfectly timed combination, left hook, right hand, snapped Ramirez back and forced him to reset. It wasn't a knockdown, but it was a warning. The kind that echoes in a fighter's mind, you're in danger. Round 4 became the turning point. Benavidez came out like a man who had seen the finish line. His punches were no longer exploratory, they were decisive. A left hook to the body, followed by a right hand upstairs. Another left hook, this time snapping the head back again. Ramirez tried to respond, tried to hold his ground, but the momentum had shifted completely. Then came the sequence. A brutal combination, fast, precise, and relentless, drove Ramirez back to the ropes. The crowd rose to its feet as Benavidez unleashed everything. Uppercuts, hooks, straight shots. It was a storm of violence, each punch landing with purpose. And then Ramirez went down. For just a split second, the arena fell silent. Not out of shock, but out of realization. This wasn't just a good performance. This was something special. Ramirez, to his credit, didn't stay down long. He rose, steadying himself, showing the heart of a champion. But the damage had been done. The confidence that once defined him now had cracks. Benavidez saw it, and he didn't hesitate. The pressure resumed immediately. More combinations, more aggression. Ramirez tried to fight back, even pushing forward at times, refusing to surrender his ground. It was admirable. It was brave. But it wasn't enough. As the rounds progressed, the pattern became undeniable. Benavidez's pace was too much, his output too high, his accuracy too sharp. Every time Ramirez tried to build momentum, it was interrupted by another flurry, another reminder that he was facing something different, something relentless. Then came the second, knockdown. A crushing sequence forced Ramirez to take a knee. This time, there was no question about the direction of the fight. The referee began the count, and as Ramirez tried to gather himself, the weight of everything, the punches, the pressure, the moment, seemed to catch up to him. He rose again, but not for long. The fight was waved off shortly after. Ramirez, showing both courage and realism, signaled that he couldn't continue. And just like that, it was over. History had been made. David Benavidez stood victorious, not just as a winner, but as a pioneer, a three-division champion, a fighter who had stepped into a new weight class and didn't just compete, he dominated. The crowd erupted, but the moment itself felt almost surreal. Benavidez, still catching his breath, looked around as if trying to process what he had just accomplished. This wasn't just another belt. This was validation. Validation of his skill, validation of his ambition, validation of his place among the elite. As the official announcement echoed through the arena, declaring him the new unified cruiserweight champion, there was a sense that something had shifted in the sport itself, because this wasn't just about one fight. This was about what comes next. Benavidez had proven he could carry his power, his speed, and his aggression into a heavier division, and not just survive, but thrive. The question now wasn't whether he belonged, it was how far he could go. Talk immediately turned to future opponents. Names like Dmitry Bivol and other champions at 175 lingered in the conversation. Benavidez himself hinted at unfinished business, suggesting a return to light heavyweight could be on the horizon. But after a performance like this, the possibilities felt endless. Because when a fighter shows that kind of dominance, that kind of hunger, it changes everything. It forces the division and the sport to adjust. And for Gilberto Ramirez, the loss, while painful, didn't erase his legacy. His willingness to stand and fight, to endure, to push back even in the face of overwhelming pressure, reminded everyone why he had reached the heights he did. But on this night, it wasn't his story. It was Benavidez's. A story of ambition meeting opportunity, of talent meeting execution, of a fighter stepping into the unknown and emerging as something greater than before. And as the lights dimmed and the crowd slowly began to settle, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a fight people would remember. This was a moment that would be replayed, analyzed, and talked about for years to come. Because every so often, boxing gives us something special, something real, something that reminds us why we watch in the first place. And on this night, that something had a name. David Benavidez.